Taking calculated bets has helped Callum Sommerton on Chill.com. Welcome to the session, Callum. Great to have you here. How are you?
Amit, very good to see you. Yeah, I'm great. Thank you.
Excellent stuff. Let's get straight into it. So, your business, you've seen some remarkable growth over the last couple of years. And what you told me during our conversation earlier was calculated bets. And I'm really keen to get into what's helped you grow over the last few years. But let's start off, first of all, by you telling us a bit about, what's your business and what kind of services you provide.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chill Brands Group PLC, listed on the main market of the London Stock Exchange. We've got operations in the US and the UK, and we are an international products distribution business. We do that with our own products. We've got nicotine-free vapes under the Chill Zero range. We've got a range of legacy CBD products, and we also now on Chill.com distribute, sell, market brands that are not our own, third-party brands, their products in the functional natural ingredient space, nootropics, CBD, hemp, gut health, whatever you can think of that may support your wellness, we're onboarding it onto chill.com. So in a nutshell, that's us.
Amazing. So you've got this platform where you're distributing plenty of products to around the world, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely right. Our core focus is US and UK. In the US, we've got an existing store footprint. Over time, we've been in hundreds of stores with the legacy CBD products. We're in the process of building up pilot store programs in Texas, Colorado, Arizona, Florida for our new Chill Zero nicotine-free vapes. And then in the UK, we're about to kick that process off as well. So we'll be targeting, again, hundreds of independent retailers and then chain retail as well. So yeah, we've got pretty broad distribution. Really depends on the products as to where we distribute it.
Brilliant. Makes sense. Now, you've experienced good growth over the last few years. Now, not to mention you're a very young entrepreneur and you're getting a lot of good success in the early years of your business. Plenty of business owners out there are thinking about what is driving Callum's success. So, how would you maybe summarize the top three factors that are driving your success at the moment?
Yeah, I think look, we can taking calculated risks, taking calculated bets. That is perhaps the most important. You've got to be informed in the way that you're spending money, particularly in the public markets, because it's not our money, it's shareholders' cash that they've put into this business. They want to see a return. So, really, what we've done there is, try to find the best opportunities that fit with the business class, category, type that will enable us to provide that return. Second, again, sort of relates to the same area, is to make sure that you're finding the right support in business. And that is, we've got this great network of shareholders, suppliers, providers in different areas. Draw on every resource you possibly can. If you need to ask a favor from somebody who's connected to your business, absolutely do it, because it could be the difference between, the business surviving and thriving or really struggling to get a foothold. And then I think beyond that, narrative is super important as well. I came into this business on the mandate of trying to drive on the public market side, improving our narrative to shareholders. But the same is true with the way that you communicate to customers, consumers, retailers. You've got to make sure that you look the business and that you're also, telling them the right things in an honest and open, but, very attractive way that will drive the business on. Certainly that's the case with products. I think it's true with services as well. But yeah, I think those are probably the three.
Makes amazing sense. I want to pick on the second one about your connections and collaborations and the support mechanism. There's plenty of support out there for people to do what they want to do, and leveraging on their connections to find favors or find quick routes across the market could be one of them. I mean, how would you maybe explain a couple of key successes you've had through the connections you've made?
Yeah, so the first would be in finding our route to market for our upcoming product launch of the Chill Zero nicotine-free vapes in the UK. So that connection came through an existing supporter of the company, a shareholder who owned the wider group that then operates this distributor up in Blackpool, but also across the UK. And really the way that we landed them, secured their support, is really just building that human connection, really making sure that we took the time to explain the business to them, making sure that they fully understood what our ambitions and our goals were, and also, selling them on the opportunity in a way that shows, well, yeah, if this works, it's going to work not just for us, but for you as well. So I think that's probably the biggest example of how we have secured a really strong business relationship that will drive success of this company over the mid to long term, even the short term, to be fair. I think outside of that, really, it's ask and you shall receive, in a way, in that in most instances I've found running this business and in the past, if you can make a compelling, clear, and just, very candid case to somebody of, this is what I really need to take this to the next level, you're more likely to get it. That you can't count necessarily on things happening organically without those human relationships. You've got to build them, and that is ultimately what drives business forward.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that. I heard a lot of business owners talk about, I'm just growing my business organically. Well, that's basically saying we're leaving the growth of our business to the universe and letting it decide what happens and when. And what you're talking about is, yes, you're going to let it grow, but really drive the growth yourself through nurturing these relations, etc. You mentioned two very important points from Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You touched on the whole aspect about working with people, and you mentioned, kind of in a roundabout way, creating a win-win partnership. When you talk to suppliers, you talk to collaborators, what's in it for them, what's in it for you, and how you both can be successful, right? And that's what you touched on earlier on. And secondly, you mentioned ask and you shall receive. That's also a part of Stephen Covey's habit. So there we go. You're following two important rules out of his seven habits he talks about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've got to understand, I guess, when building outwards, that, bootstrapping is very important when you're a business trying to start out, trying to find your feet. And, we've done our fair share of that, even in the public markets, to rein in costs. We brought a lot of things in-house and stretched ourselves as much as possible to make sure we're covering all bases. But there comes a point, as you say, where you've got to trust in other people and, encourage people to serve your business in a wider way that will catapult you onwards. I think another entrepreneur that I always refer to along those same lines and with those same lessons is Jack Ma, the guy who built Alibaba in China. And his entire career, I think, is characterized really by almost, not being afraid to embarrass himself in front of the people that he is asking for support, asking for, whether that be financial, whether that be in business terms, and really putting himself on the line for something that he believes in, and that is his business. We've got to do the same, and anybody in ventures should do that. If they truly believe that they can generate value for themselves, for stakeholders, they shouldn't be afraid to go out, to ask, to perform in a way that, might be embarrassing, might be uncomfortable and awkward, because once you can push through that, it's on the other side of that kind of difficult conversation that you'll find success.
Amazing, absolutely. And that vouch to be vulnerable and ask for help is so refreshing to hear, in that a lot of business owners kind of hide behind a facade that everything is rosy, but things aren't rosy, and then they're still in business 20 years time working crazy hours. You may as well ask for help up front, so you don't have to work all those hours later on when you probably want to be retiring on the beach somewhere.
100%.
Good stuff. Next, I'd like to shift focus over to, we looked at what's driven your success. Now let's take a look at what are some of the important lessons you've learned. No doubt along your journey, you probably stumbled, dropped the ball somewhere, or made a mistake. What would you say are some mistakes you've made, and ideally, if you can share as a business owner, your top 3 lessons you've learned so far?
Yeah, some examples on that front. You've got to, the number one lesson I've learned in this business has been that you have to be as decisive as you can be. There is no room to waver. There is no room to kind of stall on business decisions. And that is the same whether you're, hiring a new agency to handle your marketing. It's the same whether you're, determining whether to drop a product line in its entirety. Time really is money. And it's not only a case of kind of expending your resources. If you don't make a decision quickly enough, you're expending your own time and effort. And that is, super important, because you've got to assign that to the places where you're most likely to see a healthy return on your investment in effort terms. So for us, that's been, things like, there was when I came to the business, a new product category that had started up. It was a synthetic nicotine product. And, we ummed and ahed about whether to keep it or not when regulatory changes happened in 2022. We ultimately were pretty quick in dropping it in the grand scheme of things, but perhaps if we had been a little bit faster, then we may not have spent time and money on exploring the possibility of keeping it on the market. And we may be, perhaps 2 months further down the path that we're on now, rather than waiting to get to where we are. So that would be the first one. It's be decisive, use your time wisely, allocate your time into things that you think are most likely to, yield something for you. Of course, you'll never always get that right. There are going to be, mistakes that you make along the way, but those mistakes, have got to be used effectively to learn from. Never waste that opportunity to learn from a mistake or mold it into something else, because otherwise you've really wasted your time and your money.
Yeah.
That would be the first and greatest one. I think beyond that, you've got to always, and I mentioned bootstrapping earlier, there are areas of, this business where at times we have bootstrapped, our focus, our functions, and kept it in-house, kept it internal and very tight, because we're so focused on, conserving cash and also, reducing costs. That has largely been our task over the last year of the business. But at the same time, there are some areas where you have to, recognize that your expertise is either not great enough or not, serving you and the business in the right way. I'll give you an example there on marketing, and search engine optimization is the bread and butter of an online e-commerce business. We initially pulled back, brought all of that in-house, started writing blogs, started making sure that our website was communicating the right things to customers, but also to search engines. And we were doing pretty well, but we couldn't achieve as much as we wanted or needed to, because our resources internally were limited. And the moment that we, went out to an external agency, an expert agency in that specific field, it was night and day. The results that we've achieved, all of the metrics have moved up and to the right since then, which is what we need to see. And, it was that act of understanding that our expertise, our resources were not enough, that enabled us to push on upwards. I think there are cases where it's very tempting for entrepreneurs to think, I'll choose the cheapest option. I'll choose the option that, while it keeps me going late into the night, is going to make sure we're not expending cash on some kind of external provider, because, cash is king and I want to keep that in the business. That's true, but you've got to spend money to make money. That is, something that I've certainly learned in the public markets. You've got to be responsible with it, of course. It goes back to, again, making those calculated bets. If you can do your due diligence, make sure that you're spending in the right place. Just because something's a little bit more expensive doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. In fact, if you spend your money wisely, you'll get a better result out of it.
Absolutely. So refreshing to hear. Kind of, you're spending your money wisely, not being afraid to push the boat. I mean, you're absolutely right. In a tight market like this, people think, I've got to save money, cash is king, let's keep in the bank. Brilliantly put. You've got to invest your money to make money. And time again, we see people making so much success of that. So love the sharing over there. Final question before I let you go. I was going to ask the question, how would you advise your 18-year-old self? But you're probably very close to the age of 18, then you are not. So I'm not going to ask that question. But what I'll ask you is, looking ahead into the future, what would you say is the number one risk or the number one challenge you feel your business is like to face over the coming year or so?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, the biggest thing for us as a publicly listed business is that we have to remain agile. You hear these anecdotes. Large businesses or businesses that are listed are slow moving things. They can't pivot, they can't change. And we are, flying in the face of that at the moment. We are in the course of a massive pivot. This business that, over the course of its history was an oil and gas producer, it was then a CBD business. And now we're moving into what I truly believe will be our final and most successful form, which is as products distribution for nicotine-free products, tobacco alternatives, and other natural functional ingredients. So you have to remain agile. And as you say, particularly in these tight markets where it is potentially difficult to raise capital, costs are increasing, make sure that you're nimble enough to move in new directions. not to get hung up on, well, this is something that I've pumped a lot of effort into. Sunk cost fallacy is really very dangerous because, as much as it can be difficult to let go of things that have been driving your progress for a period of time, if they are no longer the most likely to return positive results for you and for your business, then you need to let go and you need to move in a new direction. That's certainly the case for us. And, we are always assessing our strategy, trying to work out if we have product market fit, trying to work out if the things that we're doing to further the distribution of our products are working. That's the first one. The second one I would say is that both in the public and private markets, you've got to make sure that you're assessing the progress of your business in the right way, particularly during difficult times, because otherwise it's very easy to become demoralized. In the public markets with our share price, we've got a KPI, a metric that is actually, not always logically or rationally correlated to the progress and the efforts that we're putting into the business. It's a snapshot on a day of how the market values you. But my view is, certainly in the public markets, as long as the business grows every day, as long as you get closer to your goals, I'm happy. I think it was Bezos who said, despite the share price declining in the early 2000s, the business got heavier every day. And so that was all that really mattered. In the long term, it'll look after itself. Same's true in private business. You've got to make sure that you are not demoralizing yourself by measuring your success and your progress in the wrong way. Everything can't come at once. Business does take time to grow, to develop, to flourish, and take the small wins and run with them.
Absolutely. Love it. Love the fact that you ended on a positive. Unfortunately, everything can't end once, but we have got to come to the end of this conversation. I've made 1.5 pages of notes. I mean, you've shared some really good gems, and no doubt the listeners, if they are listening, guys, write down your top 3 takeaways from this conversation. I'm pretty sure you probably can think of 10. Write down your top 3, and that will be a good use of your time. Callum, amazing having you in this session. Thank you for your time, and no doubt we'll cross paths in the future. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.